Hello and welcome to Newclick. Today we are going to discuss about the Tamil Nadu Assembly elections. To discuss the issue, we have with us Srinivasan Ramani, Deputy National Editor, The Hindu. Hello Srini, welcome to Newsclick.
Thanks for having me.
So if we look at the Tamil Nadu elections, the assembly elections, it looks like it's going to be a triangular fight first time. AIADMK and its allies, DMK and the People's Welfare Front coming in. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, so we can't call this elections a three-cornered alliance fight. The ADMK, for example, has told all its contestants to fight only under the two-leaf symbol, that is a party symbol. So essentially, it's one party contesting under the ADMK ticket. The DMK's allies, apart from the Congress, which is a major force, are primarily fringe parties. One Dalit party, the Pudhiya Tamilagam, is part of the alliance, and then you have a few Muslim-based parties. The third front, on the other hand, is a conglomeration of six parties which have in the past been with either of the DMK or the ADMK-led fronts. So what people are saying about this election is that because of the presence of this third front of the People's Welfare, led by the People's Welfare Front, which is primarily four parties: the CPIM, the CPI, the Marumalarchi Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam led by Vaiko, and Vidudalai Chirutaigal Katchi, the Dalit Panthers Party led by Tol Thirumalavan. These four parties came together last year and they decided to contest elections together. And they managed to also rope in the Dmdk led by Vijaykanth and recently GK Vasan's party, Tamil Manila Congress. So they basically have formed a six-party coalition to fight the elections. Whether these six-party coalitions are good enough to win the elections, nobody expects them to win the elections because they have minor supposed bases spread across the whole state and not concentrated in specific areas so that they'll win particular seats. But at the same time, they have the potential of being a big spoiler. The question, however, is whether they'll spoil the fortunes of the ADMK or will they spoil the fortunes of the DMK Congress alliance? Now, this is $1 million question. Many people say because the opposition space is split, it will only benefit the ADMK. But that is not necessarily true. The people who tend to vote for the ADMK because of their proclivities against the DMK could this time vote for the DMDK as well. So DMDK-led front as well. So there is no clarity on whether there would be who would be the biggest beneficiary. Having said that, one thing is clear that this six-party alliance has brought a new dimension to Tamil Nadu politics. Normally, for the last almost 30 years or so, except for probably 1989 and to some extent 1996, this has been a two-party or two alliance-led battle between two alliances always. So this is the first time you see a viable third alliance, even if it's not going to win, it is going to be a major spoiler.
So Vijaykanth's DMDK is contesting on more than half of the seats in the PWF, the People's Welfare Front, and he has been declared as the chief ministerial candidate also. Yeah. So I mean, how do you see his entry into the politics while he has been entirely since last many years focusing on ousting the two Dravidian parties? Yeah. So is it change in the political discourse also of the Tamil Nadu?
Basically, we should understand the logistics of this third front. So basically, the PWF, that is People's Welfare Front, has four parties. The Tamil National is represented by the MDMK, whose leader is Vaiko. The Dalit party, which is primarily concentrated in northern Tamil Nadu, that is the VCK led by Tol Thirumalavan, and the two left parties. So they have some differences, but primarily they have gotten together on a common agenda of coming up with clean, non-corrupt governance and so on. What they have done is that while they have retained their front, they have had an electoral alliance with the Vijaykanth-led party. Okay. Now, Vijaykanth-led party, the DMDK, doesn't particularly have an ideology of its own. It's more of a party based on the charisma of its leader and tries to be everything for everyone. So it also promises a non-corrupt governance. It also promises, welfare schemes to be delivered better. But there is not much of an ideological difference between the DMK, the ADMK, and the DMDK. Now, the reason why the PWF offered more seats to the DMDK is that the DMDK commanded 8 to 10% of the vote share in 2006 and 2011, and it by default occupied the third space in the largest chunk of the third space in Tamil Nadu politics. Now, this third space, it has had some relevance for the last 15, 16 years, but because primarily elections have been determined by two alliances, the third front, even the third space, even if it's a substantive chunk of 8 to 10% vote, it has not translated into seats. So because the DMDK went bold and contested alone in 2006 and managed to win 8 to 10%, that is the reason why the smaller parties of the PWF felt that we should give more seats to the DMDK-led front. Now, whether it will make a difference or not, it's a difficult question to answer because in 2006, Vijaykanth brought something fresh. He was a charismatic actor who came into politics and offered a clear alternative to the DMK and the ADMK, and immediately got some cash of support from the third space. In the last 10 years, he has not done anything to just distinguish himself from the other parties, and some of his charisma that was so visible in 2006 and 2011 seems to have come down a bit. So it remains to be seen whether he will be able to recapture the magic of winning 8 to 10% in 2006 and 2011. On the other hand, if he manages to win those at least between 5 to 10%, and the smaller parties within the PWF and also the GK Vasan's Tamil Malayalam Congress, which is a breakaway of the Congress, each chip in its own vote share. So in some seats, it could command close to 15 to 20% of the vote, or even more than that. That could, spoil the chances of the ADMK and the DMK. And in some places, maybe, for example, the left is strong in a few seats where there are organized trade unions. And if all these forces come together and manage to, add up to each of their support bases, the possibility of a left candidate winning is very high. Same with the VCK in some areas in North Tamil Nadu, where the Dalit party can, manage to, win if they get 25%, and there is a big split of the vote share among various parties. Then this front can do well. So essentially, what is happening is that the PWF is a more coherent unit, and by adding the DMDK and the TMC into it, they are trying to be a bigger spoiler. That is what the idea is of the third front.
Okay, so if you look at the Tamil Nadu elections, it looks like corruption is one among the major issues. Then the mismanagement in the Chennai floods, which has put AIADMK on the back foot. So what are such issues on which these elections are going to be fought?
Yeah, you said it. The Chennai floods last year. I mean, I was here during the floods. Thankfully, I mean, luckily, I was not here during the worst part of the floods. My family was badly affected, unfortunately. But it's very clear that in the urban areas, the floods and its aftermath will be an issue that the ADMK will have to reckon with in the elections. While one would say that the government, many people say that these floods were unprecedented. The kind of nature's fury that Chennai and Kadalur experienced was once in a generation, not even once in 100 years. There is the case also that the government was not responsive enough to handle the aftermath of the floods. I myself have done a story last year suggesting that one of the decisions made by the government officials to open up a overflowing reservoir actually resulted in greater flooding, when they could have released that water beforehand and could have saved the aftermath. So there is definite anger. I mean, many people were very, very badly affected in the floods, and there is definite anger in the urban areas, especially in Chennai and surrounding areas, about the nonchalance of the government and the way the government did not do well. As regards corruption, corruption has been an issue in Tamil Nadu politics since 1996. That was the first time when the ADMK government was unceremoniously defeated, and the DMK came to power in 1996 on the sole issue of corruption. And in fact, Ms. Jayalalitha is still the chief minister of the state, still fighting some cases that were lodged during that period in the early 1990s. So corruption has been a major issue. The DMK also, you would know, the 2G scam badly affected DMK. So corruption has always been an issue. But one of the biggest issues in these elections happens to be the issue of prohibition. Now, in Tamil Nadu, the state government has taken over the job of distribution of alcohol. I mean, the sale of alcohol. And what has happened is that over the years there has been an increased rate of alcohol. The alcoholism problem has become big, and especially among women voters, there is a yearning that there should be some degree of regulation, and even if possible prohibition that will prevent this rampant sale of alcohol. And there is the political economy reasoning for the sale of alcohol also. You would know that Tamil Nadu is a state where populism rules the roost. So every election, a lot of promises are made for subsidies, for freebies to be given to the poor and so on. Now, this could result in fiscal problems. The way they mitigate the fiscal problems is by raising revenue through sales of alcohol. That is one way of doing so. And because it's the TASMAC, the state entity which is it is in charge of distribution and sale of alcohol, it is also a cash cow for the state governments, which tries to fund its own subsidization and welfare programs to this means. So the political economy of, I mean, the political culture of Tamil Nadu, that of populism and alcohol, the sale of alcohol, is intrinsically related. There is also the third issue of sale of alcohol going up during election period, which is one of the ways to bribe voters to come and vote for a particular party. That is another matter. But this time, what has happened is that there is a clear understanding among large sections in Tamil Nadu, especially the rural areas, especially among women, that alcoholism is a big issue and it has affected so many lives. And so many parties came, even a year before the election, started speaking about prohibition. The DMK, for example, ironically, it was a DMK's tenure in the early 1970s which actually reversed prohibition. Prohibition present in the 1960s was reversed during DMK's rule. The DMK came out and said that it is going to support prohibition last year. One of the other parties, PMK, which is it is contesting alone this time, it made prohibition its core issue, and that has also resulted in Anbumani Ramadas, the son of PMK leader S. Ramadas, who's been projected as the chief ministerial candidate, and he was the health minister in the UPA regime, gained some popularity because among the youth and among women for raising this issue in a very strong way. So prohibition, and lately, in fact, day before yesterday, when the Chief Minister Jayalalitha attended, organized her first rally, the ADMK's first election rally, they also came out to the proposal that they will implement prohibition in phases. So clearly, prohibition has become a major issue, and and it remains to be seen which party will gain the most out of this issue. Will it be the one who is the first mover, that is the PMK? Will it be the DMK, which was which is a major party and which raised this issue last year itself, or will it be the ADMK itself, which is now talking about a phased strategy towards prohibition? That remains to be seen. One thing is assured, though, that the current regime is being identified with the problem of alcohol as well. So this could go against the government. How it plays out, we don't know.
So when we look at Jayalalitha herself and the Chennai floods mismanagement, she's been on back foot entirely, and the opinion poll shows a drastic decline in her vote share. So what are her prospects and the AIADMK's prospects in the coming elections?
Yeah, so I won't say I don't want to go by opinion polls because the most scientific, the most transparent opinion polls, and opinion polls which reveal their methodology. I have not seen such opinion polls come out as yet. So I don't want to go by what opinion polls say. But from as a political reporter, as someone who is engaging with other political reporters and also talking to the public often, I can say that while the ADMK is unpopular for some issues, it is popular for other issues. So, for example, the scope, the popularity of various schemes launched by this government in terms of the Amma canteens,
Canteens, yeah.
yeah, in terms of the healthcare provisions in the subsidized rice, and these kind of populist schemes that were launched in the 5 years have gained have given the ADMK government a lot of popularity. Now there are other issues. For example, when Ms. Jayalalitha went to jail and came out on bail, and she was disbarred from office because being found guilty in
Guilty,
the
yeah.
in the special court case. During that interregnum, then she came back after the Karnataka High Court declared her innocent. But there was a period when she was not in power and her proxies were in power. Mr. O. Pannirselvam of the ADMK was in power. During that period, there was a complete standstill in governance. There was no work done by the government. It was visible in the roads. It was visible in the way state government offices were functioning or not functioning. At the flip side is that people believe that if Ms. Jayalalitha is back in power, only then things got better. So so it works both ways in the sense that the ADMK is identified with Ms. Jayalalitha, and people say while people there are many who are opposed to our government on the issue of corruption. They also, on the other hand, there are many also who support her for the sway of populist schemes and also for her providing direction to governance itself. So that is one part. The second part is that the coming together of the third front has definitely divided the opposition space. So if the opposition was hypothetically united, then one could make a case that a slight drop in support for the ADMK would result in a massive gain for the opposition alliance. But in this case, a slight drop in support will be, could
Divided
be,
between the two groups.
yeah, exactly. So therefore, there is still a lot of confusion and still a lot of uncertainty about whether the ADMK has really, lost, really lost his chunk of his support base or not. So we don't know. We can't say that the ADMK is fighting an anti-incumbency battle as yet.
Srini, this would be my last question. I mean, what do you have to say about the DMK, because it has been facing a lot of infights within the party itself, and also the BJP, which has never gained, which never had more than 3% vote share alone in Tamil Nadu itself. So, how is it going to move ahead when it's fighting elections alone?
So those are two different questions. Let me answer the BJP question first. That's the easiest one to answer. The BJP, as you rightly pointed out, has generally been a non-entity in Tamil Nadu, and it's number one. It's seen as a North Indian party, and the support base is limited to certain upper castes. And thirdly, the even during the BJP's strongest political periods, that is in the 2014 elections, when Mr. Modi's campaign actually got a lot of support for the BJP in many parts of the country. In Tamil Nadu, it did not give them particularly any boost. So the BJP lacks an organizational structure in Tamil Nadu as well. Even the RSS is particularly weak in the state. There are several reasons for the weakness of the BJP here. The main has got to do with the political history of Tamil Nadu in the last 100 years, where a strong rationalist movement actually took shape, and the polity was constructed on the basis of caste identity and to some extent class identity, but not on religious identity. Religious identity did not make much of a reason. So there have been offshoots of religious politics here and there in some parts of Tamil Nadu, in the southernmost part of Tamil Nadu, like in Nagarkoil and Kanyakumari. But in other places, it has never taken root. So the BJP has never managed to gain a foothold in Tamil Nadu. So even now they have been left alone. No political party has wanted to even align with them. So it's even though it's very powerful at the center. So that tells you a story about the ineffectual nature of the BJP in Tamil Nadu. So that's the BJP story. As regards the DMK, it's an interesting question. I mean, the DMK had a great problem of infighting between the two brothers who are sons of Mr. Karunanidhi, Mr. Stalin and Mr. Alagiri. This was a few years back, but Alagiri was gradually sidelined, and Mr. Stalin has now got the full control over the DMK. But at the same time, Mr. Stalin doesn't have the same acceptable. I mean, he doesn't. He's not as acceptable as Mr. Karunanidhi is to the wider polity. So that is the reason why the DMK is still very shy of projecting Mr. Stalin as its chief ministerial face. It is still projecting Mr. Karunanidhi, who is 93 years old and very fragile, and he's the chief ministerial face, despite his advanced age and ill health. Some of the main reason for that is that while he's physically unstable, his mental faculties are very strong, still very strong, and he also has a great degree of acceptability and the DMK probably hopes that if it manages to win a large chunk of the votes, it can lure back some of the constituents of the third front post the elections. So that is his expectation, which could happen, which cannot be ruled out as of at this stage, because some of the unpopularity, as I mentioned in the previous questions, could result in a jump in the DMK vote share as well. And who knows, later after the elections, the third front might have been in a position in order to support the DMK or not. As of now, though, because of the presence of Vaiko in the third front, Mr. Vaiko had broken away from the DMK two decades back, and primarily because the DMK became a dynastic party, and leadership was passed on from Mr. Karunanidhi to Mr. Stalin, and even efficient and popular leaders like Vaiko were being sidelined within the party. That's the reason why he broke off from there, and therefore he has always shown his hostility towards the DMK. So as of now, there is no possibility. That's the reason why he has been the linchpin around which the third front has been formed. But one doesn't know whether this will hold true after the elections. So if the DMK does particularly well in the elections, even if they're short of a majority, anything can happen after the elections.
Thanks a lot, Srini, for giving us your time, and as the things proceed, we'll be coming back to you on such issues. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching Newclick.